Hi, my name is John and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a special presentation featuring my top 10 movies from 2024 that surprised me the most. So you can say this is part of my top 10 lists here series. This is like the antithesis or the opposite of the top 10 most disappointing movies. And the reason I say that is because there is a similarity of experience or reaction and expectation that goes into these movies and what gives me my final result. It's a similar thing that's going on. Many of these movies on the list are going to be somewhat more of quality than the ones that were on the most disappointing list, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all of them are worse than all of these, because it's about what my expectation was going into the movie and how I left the theater, and also other things that may have surprised me, like surprise endings, surprise twists, surprise cameos, anything like that could be considered surprise. And not necessarily are all these movies going to be good burgers or going to be positive movies that I love. There could be some lower hanging fruit type of movies that, movies that maybe the whole package I didn't love, but something within the movie surprised me. Maybe I'm just surprised by the fact that it was one of my guilty pleasures. So without no further ado, let's get into this list. Coming in at number 10 for most surprising movies of 2024 is Tarot. Okay, so hear me out. The first one on the list is already kind of a wacky, but this one surprised me because in a way this one turned out to be one of my guilty pleasures of 2024. Tarot was released in May of 2024. It's directed by Spencer Cohen. It stars Harriet Slater, Anna Hallberg, Nicholas Adams, and Owen Fury. The basic premise is a bunch of young high school kids sneak into an B&B, and they get a hold of an old tainted tarot deck, and they play with these tarot cards, and they do readings with these tarot cards. And what happens afterwards is the tarot cards come to life and haunt them and kill them in a slasher format. So yes, this was kind of hokey. Yes, this was rated PG-13. I thought it was a Blumhouse, but it wasn't. That surprised me. Yes, this had some basic generic characters in it, but there were still aspects of this movie that really surprised me. Where it surprised me was the overall setting. The haunts, the spooks, the traditional scares, those were present in this movie. A lot of slasher type tropes, yes, are there, but also the characters of the tarot cards also, I was intrigued and liked them. I liked many of their character designs. When they came to life, they seemed pretty frightening and scary. I liked, there was the Joker, there was the Magician, there was death itself. I liked the intrigue and the mystery built up behind how these characters were going to come about, how they were going to get to their victims, and so forth. So at the beginning of the movie, the main star reads each one of them a reading, and then in that reading kind of predicts who's going to kill them, how they're going to die. It's just very foreshadowing, and I like that part. Yes, there was some negatives to this one, even though I did like it and enjoy it. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm going to have high rewatchability on this one. I kind of have to be in a specific mood for it, or maybe it's one that I put on while I'm doing laundry or something like that, while I'm getting house chores done, things like that. Or if I'm just kind of in a spooky type of Ouija, tarot, creepy mood. It was overall a basic. If I was to rate this one, it probably would be a basic burger. And it wasn't terrifying. I wouldn't say it was scary. It was overall predictable with the characters, since most of the characters were just generic and okay. Though the one character, he kind of was annoying and goofy. The one that gets the Joker card. So at the end of the day, Tarot did surprise me, and that's why it comes in at number 10 for most surprising. Coming in at number 9 for most surprising movies of 2024 is the movie Baghead. This was released on Shudder in April of 2024. The director is Alberto Corredor. The stars are Frida Allen, Jeremy Irvine, and Peter Mullen. This movie was a Shudder exclusive. It was one of the first Shudder exclusives that I watched when I first signed up for Shudder. And it really was intriguing, haunting. It had the same vibe that I felt in Oddity. And let me tell you about why this one makes the list a little bit, because this movie is definitely a copycat of a movie from the year prior, which is Talk to Me. And here's what I'll say in comparison to Talk to Me, where Baghead really got me. And since these are different years, Talk to Me would come in probably on a different ranking anyway. But I feel like Baghead had that Shudder exclusive style, that more haunted, spooky style. The atmosphere was definitely very creepy in this pub where the story unravels. The monster or the creature in this, to me, was more scary and more creepy. She's this woman that's in a basement of a pub in the hole in the wall, and she comes out. She's got a bag on her head. She's got arms that are all like, she looks like Nosferatu underneath. She's just creepy. And in Talk to Me, it's the same premise, because what happens is you get this woman to the center of the room, and then she gives you an opportunity to talk to someone that's dead. And that's the same premise of Talk to Me. But in Talk to Me, the thing that it is, it's like this weird, like, handish type of mannequin thing. I mean, it was creepy for what it was, but when I put the entire Baghead character next to the hand from Talk to Me, Baghead's gonna take it, in my opinion. Now, Talk to Me is overall a better, more mainstream, more engaging movie with the characters and the acting and so forth. But this movie really did have some tension and creepy moments. And at the end of the day, there were some negatives. Obviously, it was a copycat film. There was some lulls and slow parts. It was somewhat of a slow burn. It was fairly basic in the character development. And again, as I've mentioned multiple times, and you'll probably hear it again mentioned on this list, our main character is struggling with grief. Her relatives have passed away. That's why she inherits the bar. Her dad was the bar owner in advance and passes on the bar to her. At the end of the day, this is one that was fairly creepy, had me engaged. I really enjoyed it. It spooked me out. And that's why that comes in at number 9 for most surprising in the year 2024. Coming in at number 8 for most surprising is Paramount Plus's Apartment 7A. This was 1 in 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 pregnancy horrors that we had released in 2024. This one wasn't at the top, it wasn't at the bottom. For me, it was kind of smack in the middle, but I really liked watching this one. And as I had mentioned in one of my prior reviews, that I was going to be doing this list, but I felt that I had to re-watch some of them to get the, re-experience it, to give you guys more detail and more of my experience and more of what surprised me about these movies. I really was surprised again by Apartment 7A when I re-watched it. I really, really liked this one. And if I had a pulp quote for this, it would be Flashdance meets Rosemary's Baby. This one. Apartment 7A was directed by Natalie Erica James. It was released in September of 2024 to Paramount. It stars Julia Garner, Diane Wiest, and Kevin McNally. So as I've said before, I've noticed this trend going on with movies being released in this day and age, of them kind of blending movies. And when I think of 2 big themes that occurred in this movie, it definitely was Flashdance and Rosemary's Baby. Obviously, this is a sequel to Rosemary's Baby. Or no, actually it's a prequel to Rosemary's Baby. So that's obviously has the whole lineup there. But in the mess of it is a subplot, which is Flashdance. Julia Garner's character, the main character, Miss D'Onofrio, or Chrissy D'Onofrio, I forget what her name is, D'Onofrio, she ends up being an aspiring dancer, but she's trying to be this dancer on Broadway, and her whole theme and her whole character struggle and everything that she's dealing with outside of the entity and the satanic crap and the pregnancy, she's an aspiring dancer, and she goes out on auditions and she's trying to get parts, and she had a fall in one of her episodes in one of her shows, and she got this reputation for being known as the girl who fell. And she really has some flash dance moments. And then, there is a lot of dancing elements in this movie. There's lots of dance scenes, musical numbers that go on when she shows up to her rehearsals or performances. And they blend that quite well with the whole Rosemary's Baby's theme. So Rosemary's Baby theme obviously is in here. It's the same. Alright, so it is kind of a carbon copy of Rosemary's Baby. It's the same story. Young girl gets in with these satanic people in this upscale New York apartment building, and they basically try to impregnate her with the devil. I was really surprised. I mean, it had all the haunts, the spooks, the atmosphere, the Rosemary's Baby's feel to it. The cinematography was done really well in this one as well. I mean, other than a few things that were odd to me, like in one or two scenes, this demon or this devil is like wearing these like shiny beads or has like shiny disco ball element to it. I thought that was weird. But other than that, I mean, there was lots of great cinematography. I also thought that Julia Garner's acting in this was really well. I mean, she did lots of things. She had to go through a lot of stuff. And I mean, she's no Mia Farrow. But when I think of her performance that I'd seen earlier in the year of Wolfman, which was, okay, serviceable for what that role was. This role in Apartment 7A, she had a lot more to do, and she was able to demonstrate a lot more of her chops, along with the acting, also the singing and the dancing and all that, and the the emoting of fear. So again, this one did still have some fairly basic elements to it, so there are some negatives to it. It's a plot line we've seen before, and like I said with the pregnancy horrors, if I were to do a quick ranking of all the big pregnancy horrors that came out last year, it would be like First Omen, Immaculate, 7A, and then Front Room at the bottom. I also like Kevin McNally and Diane Wiest's performance, especially Diane Wiest. I thought she did a really good job of recreating that character that Ruth Gordon created in the original Rosemary's Baby. She did it quite well. I'd still say Ruth Gordon, had that character down great. But Diane Wiest really brought it back to life in this one. Quick spoiler, just so you guys know, there will be spoilers to many of these movies being discussed. So be aware of that as we discuss them. But a quick spoiler on this one is the last scene. It was really that flash dancing Rosemary's Baby moment where she starts dancing to Be My Baby. And then, of course, I was thinking of Dirty Dancing because that song's from Dirty Dancing. But I had already had the flash dance theme going on in my head. But she does this whole dance in front of all the satanic people to Be My Baby, and then she dances herself right out the window, which was, I thought it was goofy at first, but it ended up being really creepy, and obviously that sets the stage for what happens in the Rosemary's Baby movie. And at the end of the day, this one really did surprise me. I mean, it was straight to streaming, so I thought, it'd probably be fairly basic, but I think I'd give this one a good burger. I really would give this one a good burger, especially for Julia Garner's performance. And then, that is why this one will come in number 8 for most surprising. Coming in at number 7 for most surprising of 2024, released onto Max in October 2024, Salem's Lot. Yes, you heard me right, Salem's Lot. I saw this during the last year's Halloween season, and I loved it. It was a really great time. And I think timing has a lot to do with it on this one. I'll get into that, but let me just give you the basics. I already said it was released to Max October 2024. Stars Lewis Pullman, Mackenzie Lee, Bill Camp, and Jordan Preston Carter. So what I mean by the timing on this one is it really, when the original Salem's Lot came out in in 1979, I was too young to watch it. Plus, it was kind of long and boring for me to see as a child. I wasn't into vampires as much when I was young. So I wasn't a fan of the first one then. When this got released and I watched this one, this was like a nice, more cleaned up, compact version, not a whole miniseries version of the Stephen King story Salem's Lot, which stars vampires. This one sets the stage really well with the atmosphere, had decent cinematography in parts, and there are other parts that kind of are cringy, but overall the haunting, the house, the town, the creepy townspeople, you know, this whole story, obviously it's a Stephen King story, so all those aspects, all that Stephen King brought to the story is there, which was great, and you know, I expected that part. What I didn't expect was for this one, you know, which was a straight to streaming one, to be so entertaining and to have some really neat different twists that weren't in the original one. I felt like the original one had so much more going on, more of an ensemble cast, and there was an ensemble cast here, but it was shrunk down a little bit. There seemed to be less characters running around in this town as compared to the original miniseries. Two standouts for me was the guy who played the teacher. He was smoking a pipe. He was kind of the older man that was creepy. He gets involved with one of the vampires. He's right in the center of the storyline. He's right near our main star, Lewis Pullman. And then the biggest standout for this one for me is the young kid. And he's starred by Jordan Preston Carter. This kid is just tough as nails. He's getting bullied in the playground. He's fighting back. Then he's getting bullied by the vampires, attacked by the vampires. He's fighting back. He's relentless. His parents get killed. He wants revenge. This kid is non-stop. He was like a little mini Die Hard. He was unbelievable. I loved his character, and he was so tough. But yet he had this little nerdy, tiny frame, and just it was so cool. I just really liked that character. And I'm glad, spoiler, that kid makes it all the way through to the end. And it was probably because he was tough as nails. Which brings me to our main character, which is kind of where I was let down a little bit on this one, or more of the negative. Aaron Pullman was okay. Other negatives to this one was there were some generic feeling moments to it where I'm like, all right, I can see why this one was put to streaming more than why it wasn't a theater release. But at the end of the day, this movie was fun. It had some campy moments. It was exciting. I liked that it was more compact than the original, so you can kind of get in there and get out and get the whole story and be done. And that's why Salem's Lot comes in at number 7 for 2024 surprising. Coming in at number 6 for most surprising of 2024, Blink Twice. This one was released in August of 2024. It is directed by Zoe Kravitz. It's starring Channing Tatum, Naomi Acker, Adria Arjor, Haley Joel Osment, Gina Davis, and Christian Slater. So my new poll quote on this one is, this is a cult movie, but without the cult. And what do I mean by that? So, I mean, I've been watching a lot of movies, doing my reviews, and I just compared this one to Opus, and, you know, I had comparing Opus to Midsommar, and more and more I think about it, there's so many similar characteristics to a cult movie that are in this movie, i.e. they're secluded away on an island. There's kind of like a head guy in charge running it. There's weird things with outfits and meals that are served, and it's the whole, at this kind of like compound island type of atmosphere. The only thing that's missing, is the actual cult. These guys weren't a cult. They were drinking, and they were doing drugs, and they were sitting by the pool, and they were going fishing, and they were doing it was a vacation, so it was like a vacation cult. But it was the same idea, because our main characters don't know what's going on. Start off the movie, they're turning in their phones. Strange things are happening. People are disappearing. People are losing their memories. So where did this one really come and surprise me? I would say, two things. One, in watching the preview, I didn't think I was going to like it. And then I ended up really liking this one. And then this one has a twist ending and a surprise. There's surprises throughout the storyline, which I thought were great as well. I won't spoil what those are, but at the end of the day, if I was to rate this one, I'd give it a good burger. It was decent. It was entertaining. It was haunting. It had flair. It had style. It had really cool characters in it. I really liked our main girl and one of the side girls. All the side characters. Well, I'd say two of the side characters. Her best friend and then the one that she's kind of at odds with and then becomes friends with throughout it. Played by Andrea Ardwar, who I'd put in my Academy Awards for supporting actress. The only thing I would say as far as negatives was, there was some goofy moments, especially, kind of what they were doing, some goofy elements to it. I mean, I thought Gina Davis was a goofy element. She was just, I didn't understand fully what her point was, or maybe she was just kind of stuck there for a long time. She was comedic though. There was some predictability in what was going on, especially in the beginning, in the build-up, with the creepy things that are unraveling. So at the end of the day, this one comes in number 6 for most surprising of 2024. Blink twice. Coming in at number 5 for most surprising 2024 is Nosferatu. This one is directed by Robert Eggers. It is starring Lily Rose Depp, Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, William Dafoe, and Ralph Ineson. And yes, it seemed most of Roger Eggers' old crew is back starring in another one of his films. So what I never knew about this one, that this is kind of a ripoff of Dracula. Back in the way long ago day, way even before my time, Nosferatu had come out 1922, 20-something, and it was kind of like a copyright issue back then, and it had basically stolen the story of Dracula. And it is, in a way, the basic story of Dracula, but this version is just so much more to it, more creepy. It's a time period piece, which I'm not always a fan of time period pieces, and that's sometimes where Robert Eggers gets me when I think of his other movies that I've seen. The Witch, takes back in the colonial times. The Lighthouse, which was, also 1800s. And this one takes place in 1830s Germany. So where did this surprise me? I'll tell you, it surprised me because I was expecting not to like it. I knew based on the release date and who the director was that maybe this was going to be a quality movie, but was it going to be my taste? Or was it going to be that period piece that I just couldn't get through because I get lost in the translation of it all? And at the end of the day, I didn't get lost. There were some lost moments, and I do get, I will say in the negative section that there is dialect issues where I'm just, what did that guy say? Do I have to watch this with subtitles? But the overall cinematic experience, and this guy, Robert Eggers, he knows how to make a movie. He knows how to work a camera. He knows how to get angles, how to get shots, how to get movement. I mean, just so many great things, little tricks that are in this movie. Shadows. When I was just thinking about the shadows in Woman of the Yard, and I thought, oh, that was a pretty neat trick with the hand and knocking off the stuff on the... No, Nosferatu shadows, his shadowing figure, his hand glooming over the city, his hand, first of all, his hand is creepy as anything, but like just the shadow use, the light use, everything that this guy does in this movie, it really was surprising, exciting, and really a great cinema experience. Where it lacked for me was, like I said, the dialect, just getting lost in some of what they were doing, what they were saying. There was some lulls here and there, but overall, I really enjoyed this one. Impressed by it, and looking forward to seeing what Robert Eggers does next. It's good to have a nice variety in your repertoire of movies that you like, and this one is definitely a different flavor. I would give this one a good burger as well, and that is why Nosferatu is coming in at number 5 for most surprising for 2024. Coming in at number 4 for most surprising is Lisa Frankenstein. This movie is starring Catherine Newton, Cole Sprouse, and Carla Gugino. It's directed by daughter of Robin Williams, Zelda Williams. It was released in February of 2024. So, again, this was one where I heard that it was coming out. I thought, it was going to be a horror comedy, and I thought, I'm not sure how I feel about horror comedies at this point in time. And this was before we had gotten a lot of good quality ones that I had tended to like last year and going into this year. But I was just expecting it to be little kiddish, made for teenage girls, and I wasn't going to like it. But at the end of the day, it did have some of those aspects. Our star's a teenage girl. She's in high school, but it's set in 1989, which I love that throwback. I love that time frame. I was a young kid at that time and age. I remember that year, and it's the nostalgia there. The nostalgia in the 1980s. The soundtrack on this one was great. They had some great 1980s music playing in it. Also some remakes on the actual soundtrack to Lisa Frankenstein. They redid that song Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore by REO Speedwagon. Lisa Frankenstein, or Catherine Newton, she sings it in one part. This is a basic storyline of young girl who's a wallflower. She's kind of shy, a little bit nerdy maybe. And, throughout the story, as she meets Cole Sprouse's character, who's this dead guy she brings back to life to be like the Frankenstein of her life, and then they end up killing people, going on a little murder spree as well. There's a reason, of course, because she needs body parts to get him back to normal, so that's kind of why they're doing it. Plus, the people that they're going after are people that have hurt Lisa Frankenstein, or people that they don't like her, or she doesn't like them. It's a fairly basic 80s popcorn cheesy storyline, but I loved it. So I'll put another common gripe for my negatives or mixed is Lisa Frankenstein is grieving. Her mom has died. She watched her mom die. So she's moved in with her dad and her stepmom and her stepsister. And it's that whole premise. And this was the same exact premise, by the way, that was in Cuckoo, where the girl in Cuckoo, Hunter Schafer, her mom had died, or moves in with dad and new stepsister. So it's like grieving character again. But again, I love Cuckoo. I really enjoyed this one as well. The horror comedy blended with, and it definitely leaned more into the comedy. I don't think this was scary at all. It was definitely more played for laughs and played for fun. Even the murder scenes were more to be comical, so that really was more just straight up comedy with a horror backdrop.
Lisa looks good.
She could probably even do pageants if she had congeniality.
Your daughter is a little psycho. I opened my glorious home to an ungrateful little...
I want to help you, but Taffy says it's a waste of time to try and fix a boy. It's better just accept a guy's
At the end of the
flaws.
day, this one was a good time, a good laugh, a good heartwarming one, funny. And I would give it a good burger as well. That's why Lisa Frankenstein comes in for number 4 for most surprising of 2024. Coming in at number 3 for most surprising is Conclave. Conclave came out in October of 2024. It's directed by Edward Berger, starring Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, Sergio Castellitto, and Isabelle Rollini. This one is a religious thriller. And this one is another one that really surprised me. I didn't know was coming. And, the premise of it sounded boring because here's the premise. It's basically the Pope dies and a bunch of cardinals have to convene into like they're almost sequestered jury members into this place where they have to be secluded away from everything. and they're going to have like this process, and it's not really, it's kind of like an election or a voting system that they have where they decide who of all these cardinals will be the next pope. And on paper, that sounds boring. Like, who wants to watch a bunch of old men just sit around voting? But who knew that this story could be so complex, so intriguing, filled with drama, filled with thrills, filled with lies, sex, deception, all of it. And it's a bunch of cardinals as well. And that's where this one becomes really surprising. I noticed that this one had gotten recognition from the academies a little bit in their nominations, which was great. It was well deserved. I felt like everyone, I mean, I was nominating it for many of my awards for the Academy Awards that I hosted in February of this year. And it was all well deserved. I mean, the acting in this was great. I thought Ralph Fiennes was tremendous. John Lithgow, he was kind of a menacing character, or maybe like a deceitful character. He was great. Stanley Tucci, and Isabella Rossellini, the girl from Death Becomes Her. It's so funny when I was watching this, and it's been years. 1992, Death Becomes Her, and I don't know when I've seen Isabella Rossellini since then. And I'm sitting here watching this lady dressed up as an old nun, and she's talking to these cardinals, and I'm thinking, is that the girl from Death Becomes Her, who is like the eternal goddess, beautiful lady that was in that movie with Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn and Bruce Willis? And in fact, it was. I just recognized her voice, her accent, her demeanor, and she's recognizable. And she's great, so I'm wondering, where you been all these years, girl? And you're playing an old nun, but you did that with flair as well. Another aspect that really surprised me on this one, not only just the great quality, the atmosphere, the cinematic stuff, but also the ending. So I'm definitely going to throw out another spoiler, the ending of this one. First of all, I mean, who knew that these cardinals could be so dramatic and so, like, backstabbing to each other, and the things that they do and say trying to compete, basically, to become the next pope? I mean, this, if you think about it, on paper it sounds boring, but I could imagine that this type of stuff, maybe not this extreme, but this type of stuff probably goes down. It's probably pretty stressful and dramatic and competitive. You know, being pope is pretty big when you're a cardinal or a bishop. And then the guy that they decide is going to be the pope ends up having this little complication, and it really just gives a spike to the end. He wasn't transgender, but he had some sort of surgery or some sort of thing, some sort of procedure, because he either had both parts or had transitioning going on. Either way, he was a lady downstairs, apparently, in some way. Maybe had a uterus. I forget the whole science behind it, but like, it was like, what? So like, kind of comical for the Catholic Church to think that that's going to be their next pope. But really surprise ending there, and a very surprising movie. This one was just great, just really great. So, and that's why Conclave comes in at number 3 for most surprising. And we're down to the top 2. Are you ready for them? Coming in at number 2 for most surprising 2024 is Alien Romulus. This movie is directed by Fede Alvarez. Okay, so how do I explain this one, and how this one's surprising, and how this franchise and I have grown up together, and the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. So for me, I was born at the wrong time for this franchise. And what I mean by that was, I was too little when the original Alien came out. I was a toddler. I didn't see it. I didn't see it in theaters. I don't remember watching it. I don't think my parents probably would have never let me watch it when I was 10 or younger. And then by the time, I don't know how I missed Aliens 2, or Aliens, which is Alien 2, 86. I mean, I was almost 10 by then, but still didn't get the opportunity to see that one. I guess I was still too young. So here comes 1992. Now I'm a preteen, teenager, and I'm going to the theater against my own wishes to see Alien 3 because I was with a group of friends and everyone had voted on movies and I had voted for something else and gets dragged to see Alien 3. So I was like, this is the Alien franchise, so I mean, it's the bad first step into the franchise. However, flash forward, 2024, all of a sudden Alien Romulus is on the roster of movies coming out, and I'm like, okay, I'm sure it'll be, at least in my head, I knew it would be cinematically done well. I could tell that from the preview, but I thought, sci-fi, Alien, I'm not sure I'm gonna like this one. Had gone back and watched the original and I really did love and enjoy that one. Sigourney Weaver, I mean, she was amazing. Just a great, no one can hear you scream in space. And this one, compared to Alien 3, it definitely stands out. Compared to what I've heard about some of the other Alien movies that have been out recently, this one really does well. It's a complete nostalgic throwback for that movie, but it also has its own thing going on. It's modernized with the characters being, seem like characters from this time frame, even though the timing of when this is I guess between Alien and Aliens. It's all irrelevant because it's so far into the future. You can't pinpoint what that time frame really feels like except for through the actual movie. And I really like the action in this one. The alien design, the face huggers, the xenomorph, even the alien at the end that gets like born. Really, really neat design. The face huggers especially were terrorizing, especially in the one scene where the face hugger gets into her body and she's got it running around. The other girl's like in pure shock. And when they're running and when they're creeping down hallways, really done well in this movie. I really was surprised about how much I enjoyed it. It literally missed my top 10 of 2024 by one. It was ranking 11. I mean, it really was in the 11th spot. If I'd missed one of those other movies or not liked one of those other movies, it would have been in my top 10. So at the end of the day, Alien Romulus is great. It's brought me into the Alien franchise, which I now love. And just recently watching the movie Ash, which was similar to the Alien, loved that. So that is why Alien Romulus comes in for number 2 most surprising 2024, and coming in at number 1 for most surprising of the year 2024 is Strange Darlings. This movie was released in August of 2024, starring Willa Fitzgerald, Kyle Gallner, and directed by J.T. Mulner. This was another one that I had to watch again for me to prepare for this video. And boy, am I glad I did, because I really, really loved and enjoyed Strange Darlings. And yes, it was the biggest surprise for me of the year because I didn't even know it was coming. I didn't think I was gonna like it when I did hear about it. I was hearing a lot of hype from other YouTubers who were praising it. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give this one a chance. Let me just tell you, this one subverts expectations in a great way, in a way that we haven't seen in a while. I just loved it. First of all, it's told in chapters, there was a point to it. There were 6 chapters and they're told out of order, and I thought, oh gosh, when I first saw that and we're watching chapter 3 is first, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be complicated, where I'm going to have to pay attention now and take notes. But no, it does a great job of, when you walk into a movie and you walk into a serial killer movie, you have all these expectations of how it's kind of going to go. And so many movies are so predictable, you end up being right half the time with, oh yeah, there's the killer. You're right. They're going to die next. You're right. But here, it's different. It did just like what so many movies have done in the past that are in this category, that's just takes those expectations, flips them around, smashes them up and mashes them down, and you're like, what? We're going this way all of a sudden? Like, really great. So of course I'm going to get into some of the spoiler aspects of this one. So Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner are on a date, and it seems like maybe it was going to be a hookup, or maybe they'd met in a bar or met on an app. I guess it was more they met in person, because there's this whole they were debating if they were going to exchange numbers and exchange socials and stuff like that. But, you know, that's not where we start. You know, we start in the movie where he's chasing her. So all of a sudden, you know, it's like he's the killer, right? You know, typical. He looks like the creepy. His name's the Demon, or they call him the Demon in the credits. And, you know, he's angry looking. He's menacing. He's chasing her in this giant pickup truck. He's got a rifle. So I'm like, yep, he's going to get her. You know, we've got the standard serial killer cat and mouse chase going down on this one. So as this movie progresses, you're really thinking, you know, you're starting to think that Willa's the, you know, she's known as the lady, or, well, they end up calling her the electric lady, but the lady, you're thinking she's that she's the protagonist. You're starting to root for her, like, oh, she's being chased by this mean, horrible man. Let's hope she gets away. But as these chapters unravel in the order they do, it starts to turn the table of, wait a second, why'd she do that? Why'd he do that? Ain't this kind of going in a certain direction? Why are they kind of crisscrossing paths all of a sudden in a way where now she's becoming the antagonist and he's becoming the protagonist? Because guess what? She's the killer. Spoiler. Sorry. She's the killer. So, like, she's the one. She plays this psychotic killer. She's been on the loose, according to the movie, for a couple years. The cops have been looking for her and so forth, but she's the one. And then all of a sudden the tables are turned and he's the one that's trying to get away from her. But, you know, he had been chasing her because she had tried to kill him. So that was, you know, in the chapters being told out of order. But this one, I mean, first of all, Willa Fitzgerald's performance in this is just great. I don't know how I miss her for my Academy Award nominations. I think I nominated Kyle. I don't remember nominating her, but she does really well. Being crazy. She's just crazy. Totally crazy. Kyle Gallner, I love him. He's been in so many movies. He had a role in Scream 5. He was originally in The Haunting of Connecticut. For someone who ends up turning into a protagonist, still has this creep edge to him, and just, you know, he turns out to be a cop as well. But, you know, he really does well also in what he has to do. How he gets entangled with this girl and then escapes from her and then gets caught up with her again. It's just a great story. And want to know what else? I'm glad I watched this for the second time, because whenever you have a great movie like this that has twists and turns and like an unexpected plot twist in it, just like watching The Sixth Sense for the second time, you see the movie as a whole different movie, because now you're reevaluating everything that's being presented to you in a different way, because you have knowledge that you didn't know the first time. So the ride you have the first time watching a movie like this is a great ride. It's a ride with mystery and intrigue, with a surprise ending, and you love it. But when you come through that second time, it's like your whole thought process is going through a whole other thing, and it's like, why? How didn't I know that? Exactly. So this movie does it. It's great for rewatchability, you know, and this is one where I've watched it twice now. Now I gotta not watch it for a while and try and forget about it a little bit and then watch it again in the much distant future. But I'll tell you what, there's no doubt, no surprise. This one is the most surprising, with twists and turns and expectations, the whole nine, movie of 2024, Strange Darlings, and it's a cheeseburger in paradise. Alright, well that wraps it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this list. There is definitely a variety of all sorts of movies on here. Guilty pleasures, plot twists. Hopefully if you haven't seen some of these movies, you go out and check them out. Most of these are on streaming, some sort of form of streaming by now. What's the most surprising movie you've watched throughout your lifetime? I'd love to hear it, because maybe if it's a movie I never seen, I might watch it. So let me know in the comments. Thanks again.